Now that you've worked on slope from a graph, we're going to look at calculating slope when you don't have a graph. And there's actually a formula we can use. So today's title will be the slope formula. So we use the formula to find the slope between 2 points. Remember, the slope is just your change in your y values versus your change in your x values. So remember, points are always listed as x comma y. So when we're talking about 2 points, we write them a little differently. And we list them as x1, y1, and x2, comma, y2. So that little number is called a subscript, and that's just telling you that this is the first coordinate, x1, y1. That's the very first coordinate you're looking at. The second coordinate on the graph is x2, y2. So remember, your graph is always listed as x comma y when you plot your points. And then when you pick points, the first point is x1, y1, and the second point is x2, y2. And you could keep going if you wanted. You could have a third point, x3, y3, and you can keep going. That's how we just indicate which points we're looking at. So the formula is where you have m equal to, remember m is slope. That letter represents slope. You take your y values, y sub 2 minus y sub 1, over your x values, x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So let's take a look at some examples. Let's say I gave you the coordinates negative 13, comma 8, and 3, comma 12. The very first thing you should do for every problem is label your x1, y1, and your x2, y2. So remember, every coordinate is listed as x and y, and we're just picking which one is the first one and which one is the second one. So this is my first coordinate, x1, y1, and my second coordinate. Now I'm just taking these values and plugging them into the formula that we have up above us. So I'm taking my y sub 2 value minus my y sub 1 value over my x sub 2 value minus my x sub 1 value. And notice here, this is a very common mistake. There's a minus sign here, so I have to have two minus signs to indicate the minus sign in the formula and the minus sign on this x1, x sub 1 number. So 12 minus 8 is 4. 3 minus negative 13 becomes plus 13, so it's becomes 16. And then remember, you can simplify. So 4 and 16 can both be divided by 4. So this turns into 1/4. And that's using the slope formula. Label your points x1, y1, x2, y2, and then plug those values in to the formula. Let's try another example. Say I gave you 19, comma, negative 12, and 5, comma, 16. So same first step, label your x1, y1, x2, y2. And now you take your y values and subtract them. So I'm going to take 16, that's my y sub 2 value, minus negative 12, because I'm subtracting the y values, over 5 minus 19. Again, remember, when you're subtracting a negative, you have to have two minus signs there to represent that. So 16 minus negative 12 becomes positive 28. And 5 minus 19 is negative 14. Use your calculators if you're not sure. Always double check your work. So then 28 divided by negative 14 gives me negative 2. Always simplify your fractions if you can when you're doing slope. Let's look at two more examples, and then you should be ready to go with the slope formula. All right, let's say you had 3, 5, and 3, negative 6. Remember, label your points, x1, y1, x2, y2. And now you're going to just plug those values into the formula. So we're going to take negative 6 minus 5 over 3 minus 3. So negative 6 minus 5, that's negative 11. And 3 minus 3 is 0. All right, so in this problem, type this into your calculator and see what you get. Negative 11 divided by 0 is not 0. It's a very common mistake that people make when they're using these problems. So if you were to type this on your calculator, and I'm just going to use the one on my phone, if I do 11 negative divided by 0, it says error. So if that happens on your calculator, the slope for this one is undefined. And that's why we call it undefined slope. So when 0 is on the bottom, undefined. Okay, let's try another example. Let's say I gave you 5, negative 4, and 2, negative 4. Remember to label your points, x1, y1, x2, y2. And then subtract. You do your y values on top. So I have negative 4 minus negative 4. Again, remember, if I'm subtracting a negative, there's two minus signs there. Over 2 minus 5. So negative 4 minus negative 4 is 0 on top because that's negative 4 plus 4 over negative 3. So now this one, let's check on the calculator again. I'm just taking 0 divided by negative 3. And this one gives me 0. So when 0 is on top, your slope is 0 overall. And that's calculating slope using the slope formula. So now we've calculated slope from a graph, and we have also now learned how to calculate slope from a formula.